Again, I'm Kumar Ramachandran, founder CEO for CloudGenix. And when it comes to security and SD-WAN, it gets very interesting, right? Where there's a big shift that we're seeing right now in remote office security and security models. And we have a very strong viewpoint on the direction in which most customers are likely to head. So when you think of multi-cloud, right? So most customers are headed towards a model where I have my data center, I also have some combination of AWS plus Azure plus GCP, and the reality is that especially in the last 18, 24 months, we've seen Microsoft emerge as a pretty formidable competitor in the enterprise, and Google is not getting left behind, right? They're making some pretty big investments in addition to all your SaaS services. So the old model where your security stack really was hosted from your data center doesn't really work in the new branch access model, right? If you just kept your security stack in the data center, it's as useful as a paperweight is these days. So it's very clear that you need a new security model for the multi-cloud world. And we're big believers that there is an opportunity really to say which functions of security need to stay physically at the branch and which are best delivered from the near edge, right? And while doing that, we think there's 4 or 5 principles that are particularly important, right? One is you want a consistent security model for all your branches, right? Whether it's branch to cloud, branch to internet recreational, branch to data center, or branch to branch. You want a consistent model being applied across all those properties or all those flows. The second, you want defense in depth, right? Where we think that the best way to distinguish what is the security that needs to physically reside at the branch versus which functions are best delivered from the near cloud is a good way to think about it as perimeter security versus advanced security. Or think about security functions that are relatively stable across time, don't require extremely frequent upgrades, versus security functions that typically require frequent upgrades, sometimes as quickly as every other week, right? So network security, segmentation, layer 7 based policies, they're great to have at the branch with policy enforcement. Things like cyber security, which changes dynamically and requires a lot of updates, you're better off getting from the near cloud. In that model, though, you do want centralized policy with local enforcement, right? It goes back to the principle that you don't want to lose functionality in your branch. This model gives you elasticity, right? We were talking to one of our customers where they wanted to add data leakage prevention capabilities for their SharePoint access. They used to have their data leakage prevention system sitting in their data center. Their firewalls in the branch don't have the horsepower for data leakage prevention. Now that they have migrated to a cloud-delivered security model, it's literally pressing of a button, and the SaaS provider for security is delivering that, right? So the near security solutions, you have solutions from Zscaler, from Palo Alto with Prisma. There's a variety of the other vendors, Netscope, Cloudflare, Checkpoint, all of them are delivering these solutions. I think the critical thing really is how do you take those best-of-breed functions that are cloud-delivered and integrate them into the branch in a very elegant manner. In our case, we'll describe how the CloudBlades architecture solves for all of this.
So at the branch, is there a CloudGenix
device or software? Yes.
In addition to the cloud security?
Yeah, no. So at the branch, the only device or software you need at the branch is CloudGenix. You don't need anything else. CloudGenix natively has a layer 3 through layer 7 firewall, right? That is integrated with the cloud security.
Okay, that's the piece I was missing.
Yes.
There is a device.
And we'll talk about that integration and why that integration goes well beyond just establishing a tunnel into some of those cloud security solutions.
Okay. Yeah, so in this case, I mean, yeah, it's a cloud security solution, but it's not a CloudGenix one. So
that's right.
The cost of CloudGenix is not the whole picture then. You have to you're buying Zscaler or Prisma or something like that on top of it.
Absolutely. So in the enterprise,
I assume that's a separate licensing agreement. You go to them, license it up, and then you'll integrate?
Yes, and meaning that there are some solutions that we resell. That the reality is that we are a 100% channel company. Most leading security providers are 100% channel, and many channel providers have rolled out a single SKU. It's very competitively priced. And when customers start aggregating in, not only the upfront cost, but also the cost of management and looking at the options, and you're leading to the right place, right? So the two big options that a customer will have is an all-in-one solution, right? Let me go to my favorite vendor, and we won't bash the third letter of alphabet just yet. We'll wait for a few more minutes, and let me go get everything from them, or do I go to best-of-breed solutions? And since you asked the question, let's look at exactly that, right? So there are benefits to all-in-one, right? Which is it's one throat to choke, and more often than not, you are trying to choke the throat. You're not trying to pat anyone on the back. The second is oftentimes it can be a one-box solution. Now, the issues to consider really are that it's a mediocre solution usually, because very few vendors invest to be a best-of-breed security player, a best-of-breed SD-WAN, that historically is just proven not to exist. And if they do get it right for the first iteration of code, very quickly you see the feature velocity go away. Let's be real. This thing, we've seen this movie play out many times, right? I have an electric engine, I have a combustion engine, I try sticking both of it together. In our industry, it's always resulted in a dumpster fire. We think very clearly, best of breed is very, very powerful. Zero compromise in security, zero compromise in your networking features, you can get it. But it's not without issues, right? Why haven't we as an industry historically adopted it? Because one, solution integration can be painful. You need an architecture where you actually resolve issues across vendors, and you need vendors that are committed to that approach, where you don't start by saying, oh yeah, you know what, I'm going to partner with someone, and then once I embrace them, I crush them, right? Unless you're committed to that strategy, it's not a vendor you can trust. I think the other issues you bring up in terms of cost structures, we'll actually talk about it in depth. To me, that's a Tesla approach, right? Wherein you build clean, grounds up, clean architectures. If you're building an electric car, don't take a combustion engine and stick an electric motor onto it. That's great for Gen 1, right? That doesn't serve the majority of the market. So let's look at what are the 4 things we think are required to deliver this elegant model of security, and why we think the CloudGenix cloud-based architecture, or how it delivers on all 4. So there's 4 things. One is you do need layer 3 integration. You have to extend the security perimeter from the branch into the cloud security solution. 2, you need layer 7 integration for 2 reasons. 1, you need performance-based selection, right? Anytime there's a node in the cloud and you're adding a waypoint into your traffic flow, there is a potential for latency, the potential for the cloud node being down, the application performance not working as well. You have to understand that. You have to be able to apply policy enforcement at the branch, where if there's a blacklist, whitelist, graylist, enforce it, right? Oftentimes, people will whitelist something like WebEx or Zoom so that I don't get needless latencies into it. And then the last thing is about really getting a universal data context, right? In the SASE model, as Gartner likes to call it, what happens is that the security solution doesn't necessarily see 100% of your traffic, right? So let's say in this example, the customer finds spurious behavior in a user accessing Office 365. You also want to know what else was happening in that branch, what else was happening with that user, and you need to, if there was traffic being blackballed, right, or traffic going as whitelist, you want to know everything too, right? So you do need to get that consistent model to be able to get all the context required for security analysis. So let's take an example and see exactly how all 4 are done by us using our cloud-based solution. So most security solutions, whether it's Palo Alto Prisma or it's Zscaler or anyone else, they have pretty well-distributed security nodes in the cloud, right? And when CloudGenix is deployed, let's say there's a deployment that's global, we're deployed across the entire world for a customer like this, what happens is that our security cloud blade queries the security vendor, finds out which are the 2 closest based on latency, endpoints and security, and then establishes layer 3 based tunnels to those security solutions, right? So that's step 1. If you think about the manual alternatives, those are pretty grisly, right? So you definitely want vendors that are committed to this, to integration and not trying to do everything themselves, but bringing this best-in-class solution to your customer. It doesn't stop, though, by just establishing tunnels, right? The next thing you have to do is you have to understand layer 7 performance in real time. because we now have enough customers deployed globally with security products that taking that default that the security vendor gives you is not sufficient, because that node in the cloud doesn't know dynamically what's happening in the branch to the security node link. It doesn't know exactly where you're headed, which cloud you're headed. You might be going to Office 365, you might be going to a different kind of solution. You have to pick the right solution, right path, and use all the connectivity in an active manner.
So to that point, from each of the CASB edges, are you then monitoring reachability metrics to those services as well, so that you can route to the best gateway?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And we're doing it at layer 3 and at layer 7.
So really, when you look at the security solutions, it's not just a connection up to them. You're adding on to what they're doing.
That's exactly right. And if you look at it, right, so we keep saying that the layer 3 through layer 7 at the branch is so critical, because you take an example. I move my Palo Alto firewall to the cloud, to Palo Alto Prisma solution. I still need the ability to enforce at the branch a blacklist. I need to allow for a whitelist. I need to allow branch segmentation. I need to allow application-based micro-segmentation at the branch, right? All of that is being delivered by us. And those are stable functions in security. They don't change dramatically month by month, year by year. So your customer is not upgrading that software. Things that change more dynamically, they're being taken care of by Palo Alto in the cloud. Did I just wind up going too far back? Yeah, there we go. So if you think about policies, right, and what kind of policies are now being specified. So let's take a retail example. So one of our retail customers, your policies, they place it in a centralized repository where for your point of sale application, my policy is that it's my P1 application. I need deep security, I need IPS, IDS, and data leakage prevention because it's carrying consumer credit card traffic. And I need PCI segmentation at the branch, right? That's the problem your business is trying to solve. Whereas for my store inventory, I don't need DLP. DLPs are expensive solutions, and it sits in a different segment at the branch. My guest Wi-Fi is URL filtering. I don't need anything else, right? That's the policy that describes my store. So we take that policy, and across our partners in security and us, we're able to enforce that across every one of your stores, right? Similarly in manufacturing. And the entire capture of policy to the implementation, all of that is automated using DevOps-style scripting. And we'll show you the details of that too in a little bit here.
So you showed the Palo Alto running in the cloud.
Yeah.
So if your customers ask you to run it on the same box,
yeah,
with the SD-WAN CPE, so do you have an option for that?
So the answer is the technical answer for it is yes, you can run a virtual Palo Alto and a virtual CloudGenix on the same device, right? Both have virtual machines and you can run it. The more interesting question to me is why. You're going to now take on the overhead of wanting to run something at the branch. What we've done with this architecture and this solution is we are providing you all the benefits of having that virtual or physical Palo Alto at the branch while you never ever actually have to worry about it, right?
The customer wants firewall at his prem,
Yes, and we provide network perimeter firewall, including layer 7 firewall functionality. That's right, we provide it natively. So in almost every use case that customers have, and it's a very important question, right? And which is, are there use cases where I still need to pull in this kind of security solution? And what we have found is no. Even for branch to branch, we're able to actually invoke those security solutions, eliminating latencies. So that is why it's so transformative, right? Because even without CloudGenix, you don't need CloudGenix to deploy a Zscaler or a Prisma. If you're willing to get blistered, you can do anything, right? The question is, can you get those security solutions with ease of use, right? So you're not actually deploying GRE tunnels or anything. Can you deploy those solutions without loss of functionality, right? And that's what we've really addressed with this architecture.
So if you're walking into a branch and I physically look at the IT closet, am I really just looking at one piece of hardware in which you're abstracting a lot of multiple pieces of hardware?
No. So that's a great question. Are we still trying to put, actually I shouldn't say no, maybe where conceptually you're absolutely right. Meaning that all that you have is not just one piece of hardware, it's also just one piece of software. The only thing you're running in the branch is the CloudGenix layer 3 through layer 7 engine, right? Everything else is a cloud service. We are not deploying additional VMs. We're not deploying anything else. You logically get all those services at the branch, so you're right. You logically get it, but you don't anymore have to have physical instantiation as virtual machines, which is NFV, or as hardware blades, which was the classic approach. And that's why we think it's very transformative, and that's why, candidly, we're seeing a lot of customers adopt this en masse. Right? We think this is a huge transformation in the industry because before this, customers were stuck with thinking about not just cloud security, a bunch of cloud services. They weren't really making it to the branch. Right? There was this resistance on barriers that customers had to overcome.
This branch CP is basically a server, or what it is?
That's it. And what we tell customers is that you can get an appliance from us, which is nothing but a server, or they can buy the server and stick our software onto it. Either is just fine, and depending on what the customer prefers, they go and take it.
So you would select a firewall feature, for example, but let's say like Palo Alto firewall, but when you look at it, are you configuring a Palo Alto firewall, or is it you're bringing your own interface in which you just define the set of policies?
Right. So there's actually two models. One is you can actually use a centralized repository like a GitHub or something, which can automate the whole end-to-end solution. Most customers right now, what they're doing is they're setting up the detailed security policies within Palo Alto, right? The integration policies within us. We'll show the demo. We actually have demos with Palo Alto and demos with Zscaler, both of which we'll show it in a few minutes here.
Okay. So with Palo, is that just like Prisma, or?
Yes, with Prisma. That's right. The virtual machine can be co-hosted with CloudGenix, and that's a very valid option for customers that want to do it. But there is very specific use cases where it's relevant.
Right.
Yeah. So the fourth thing around these integrations really comes down to saying, how do you get this universal data context, right? And the first question is, why do I need a universal data context? So let's look at the flows. From the branch, there's traffic that can go to, let's say, your Prisma or Zscaler or anyone else. There's traffic that can be blackballed or blacklisted at the branch by us. There's traffic that's being whitelisted by us, right? Because most customers want to have those kind of granular specifications. What we do is capture every flow that ever goes in or out of the CloudGenix device. Metadata about it is logged in a centralized data lake. It's accumulated across all customers, partitioned across all customers, and stored with analytics engines on top of it. Now, a customer, when, let's say, someone says there was an incorrect access of SharePoint documents by XYZ user, right? What the administrator typically wants to do is go in and say, okay, what else was going on with that user, right? Security is about context. In our case, we actually had one manufacturing customer who went through exactly that. So they came to our system. What we found is we were having to blacklist a whole bunch of accesses to certain IP addresses in North Korea, right? So what the real conclusion was, this wasn't a rogue user. The suspicion fell into their laptop, and they actually found malware on their laptop. So it was a compromised device rather than a rogue user. And they were able to know that because that data that came from us was integrated with the data from Palo Alto by them. And that integration from our data lake is also part of our Cloud Blades offer. So when you look at those four big things, layer 3 tunneling, layer 7 performance-based management, policy enforcement, universal data context. If you do these four things, then you can allow a cloud-delivered solution to have the same impact as a physical solution at the branch, right? But it doesn't end there. All of this sounds fantastic. I have enough gray hair to know that version 1 of codes can be well integrated. What happens when CloudGenix has a code upgrade? What happens when Zscaler has a code upgrade? What happens when Palo Alto has a code upgrade? Right? Are we all scrambling? Are we running dev tests on customer networks? How exactly is the solution going to work? Right? Which is why we are big believers that architecture does matter. It does matter how you choose to do stuff, whether you're glomming onto things or solving things differently. The way, going back to the Cloud Blades conversation, if you remember, what we said is there is the CloudGenix devices, there's an API. In the cloud, we built out this Cloud Blades application hosting platform. All the integration that we built to Palo Alto is built as an application on top of this platform. So when Palo Alto makes a change to their code, we only integrate with their published APIs. Their APIs are backwards compatible, our APIs are backwards compatible. Even if there's a change that needs to be made, it requires 0 changes in our code, 0 changes in our controller code, 0 changes in our CloudBlades code, only that little app, which can be written by, it's a Python app running and hosted by us, only that may need to change, right? And even that, as long as vendors are maintaining backwards compatibility of published APIs, which we should and they should, you will not have issues. Can there be software bugs? Yes, right? Software can always have bugs. But outside of software bugs, you now have an integration model that is better than a single vendor trying to deliver all these solutions with spaghetti code making its way all through iOS. So when you look at it, right, what we're delivering here is secure SD-WAN with best-of-breed solutions with 0 incremental hardware at the branch, 0 loss of functionality, and in a very, very elegant manner.